Heavenly fire burned for 3 days and 3 nights. My flower garden, my palace, the 10,000 acres of immortal herbs I relied on to ascend, all turned to ashes. Heavenly Prince Ling Xiao, just to force out his sulking little lover, dared to unleash divine fire to burn down my Sihua palace. He held the weeping demoness in his arms, looking down at me from above with a voice as cold as iron. A mere flower and grass fairy, having your broken garden burned is your honor. I threw away the sunflower seeds I was snacking on, and from the ashes, picked up my rusty hoe. Fine, noble of imperial blood, truly awesome. I laughed. Today, you two will both be buried here to be my fertilizer. I have been a minor official in the heavenly court for 3,000 years, a Sihua fairy. To put it bluntly, just someone who plants flowers. No background, no backing. My only hobby is to stay in my Sihua palace, snacking on sunflower seeds, reading novels, and tending to my few acres of immortal herbs. My days are spent in complete relaxation. Until Heavenly Prince Ling Xiao brought back a woman from the mortal realm. Her name is Luo Ying, said to be a descendant of a fallen demon clan. These two, with great fanfare, loved each other to death, throwing the entire heavenly court into chaos. Today they argue, tomorrow they make up, the day after tomorrow they get jealous because of another fairy. We, the low-level fairies, are happy to have gossip to eat every day. TSK, this prince is hopeless with love. That Luo Ying is no innocent either. She feels uncomfortable if she doesn't stir up trouble for a day. A perfect match, locked in, don't come out and harm others. I snacked on sunflower seeds, watching the live broadcast gossip in the water mirror, living my days carefree and leisurely. Until today, that Luo Ying had another tiff with Ling Xiao and plunged straight into my flower garden. My flower garden doesn't have anything else, just lots of flowers and grass, perfect for hide and seek. Immediately after, Ling Xiao led a troop of celestial soldiers, following with imposing momentum. Su Qian, get out here for this prince. He called me out by name. I slowly sauntered out, cupping my hands in greeting. Your Highness, the Crown Prince, has graced us with your presence. Forgive me for failing to greet you properly. The anger in Ling Xiao's eyes almost burst forth. He didn't even look at me, sweeping his divine scents across the entire flower garden. Hand her over, he commanded. I spread my hands, feigning innocence. Your Highness is joking. My Sihua palace only has flowers and plants. Where would any people come from? Acting, keep acting. Am I blind? That woman is hiding in that patch of rainbow roses right behind you. Luo Ying trembled within the flower bushes, even poking out half her head, looking at Ling Xiao with tearful eyes. Performing, you two keep performing. The Oscars owe you two a little golden statue each. Ling Xiao's patience had clearly run out. He looked at Luo Ying, who refused to come out no matter what, then at me, the unappreciative gardener. A cruel, cold smile surfaced on his face. You won't come out, is that it? He suddenly raised his hand. A ball of golden divine fire condensed in his palm, radiating a terrifyingly frightening heat. My pupils constricted instantly. That was the sun-true fire, overbearing beyond compare, burning everything to ashes. Your Highness, you can't. I shouted involuntarily. In my flower garden, there weren't just ordinary immortal herbs. There was also a garden of ancient herbs that the goddess Nuwa entrusted me to look after. Those were the foundation for repairing the spirit veins of the 6 realms. Get lost. Ling Xiao kicked me to the ground. He didn't care at all. In his eyes, I, along with my entire garden of flowers and plants, were like ants. Today I will burn down this pathetic garden and see if she comes out. As soon as he finished speaking, that ball of solar true fire, like a falling sun, slammed into the center of my flower garden. Flames soared into the sky. I watched helplessly as those immortal herbs that I had personally planted and cared for thousands of years instantly turned to charcoal. Those delicate flowers let out silent screams in the raging flames. The air was filled with a nauseating burnt smell. My heart felt like it was burned through by that fire. especially that herb garden protected by a separate barrier. Under the scorching heat of the solar true fire, the barrier shattered inch by inch, and the ancient herbs inside withered and turned to ashes at a visible rate. Luo Ying, frightened, screamed and ran out of the flower bushes, throwing herself into Ling Xiao's arms. "Brother Crown Prince, I'm scared." Ling Xiao hugged her with affection, gently comforting her. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." He didn't even glance at the ruins that had already turned into a sea of fire, as if he had simply crushed an ant. He held his precious darling in his arms and turned to leave. As he passed by me, he stopped and glanced down at me condescendingly. That look was pure contempt. "A mere flower and grass fairy. Burning your pathetic garden is your honor. If there's a next time, I'll burn your immortal bones along with it." I lay prostrate in the scorching hot ashes and laughed. Something inside my chest shattered. Then, an unprecedented violence surged madly from the depths of my soul. "Honor? Good, what an honor." I slowly got up from the ground, dusting off the dirt from my body. I threw away the few sunflower seeds in my hand, which had been squeezed until they were burning hot. I bent down, and from amidst the scorched earth, picked up my rusty hoe, which I'd used for 3,000 years. The hoe in my hand, a familiar, cold sensation came over me. I raised my head and, facing the backs of that dog couple, revealed a brilliant smile. "Stop!" My voice wasn't loud, but like a clap of thunder, it made Ling Xiao and Luo Ying halt in their steps. Ling Xiao impatiently turned around, his brows furrowed. "What else do you want?" "Looking for death." I tested the weight of the hoe in my hand and walked towards him step by step. "Today, you two will both be buried here to be flower fertilizer." Ling Xiao acted as if he heard the joke of the century. The celestial soldiers behind him all burst into laughter. "Is this gardener crazy? Dare to speak to His Highness the Crown Prince like that? A lowly little immortal doesn't know his own death." Ling Xiao's face was full of mockery. "With your broken hoe? To loosen the soil for this prince." He waved his hand, and two celestial soldiers immediately came forward, brandishing long halberds. "Take him down, break his limbs, and throw him into the heavenly prison." The two celestial soldiers were surrounded by divine light, their aura imposing, each step shaking the clouds. In their eyes, dealing with a flower, tending a mortal like me didn't even require them to use their full strength. "Celestial soldiers? Are you so impressive?" My heart was ice cold. I raised my hoe. There were no dazzling immortal techniques, no blinding lights. It was just that simple, like an old farmer in the mortal realm, swinging down at the land before him. Clang! A jarring sound of metal clashing against metal. One of the celestial soldiers' halberds was firmly blocked by my hoe. The mockery on his face instantly froze. A huge force came from a hoe, numbing his tiger's mouth and nearly causing him to drop his halberd. "How is this possible?" he exclaimed in surprise. Seeing this, another celestial soldier transformed his halberd into a flash of cold light, stabbing towards my chest from the side. I didn't dodge or avoid it. Instead, I swung my hand back. The other end of the hoe accurately struck his halberd shaft. Crack! The halberd, crafted from heavenly profound iron, snapped in response. The celestial soldier, holding the broken half of his halberd, stared blankly, as if he had seen a ghost. The entire scene fell silent. The smile on Ling Xiao's face also froze. He stared intently at the hoe in my hand, that seemingly rusty, unremarkable farming tool. Now you know something's wrong? Too late. I didn't give them any time to react. I moved. My figure was as fast as a ghost, instantly appearing before the two petrified celestial soldiers. The hoe swung, carrying the whistling sound of the wind, not aimed at their bodies, but at their knees. Two teeth-aching sounds of bone cracking. Two arrogant celestial soldiers screamed and knelt on the ground, their kneecaps completely shattered. The celestial arts of the heavenly court can reshape the physical body, but this kind of Tao injury caused by special objects is extremely difficult to heal. "You're courting death." Ling Xiao finally flew into a rage. He never expected that an ant in his eyes would dare to cripple his personal guards in front of him. This was the most blatant provocation to his authority. Terrifying crown Prince Divine might erupted from his body. Golden dragon chi coiled around him, and a golden longsword engraved with dragon patterns appeared in his hand. This prince will personally slaughter you. Sword chi crisscrossed, tearing apart the sea of clouds, and slashed directly towards the top of my head. I looked up, watching the sword chi that could sever mountains and rivers. My eyes showed no fluctuation whatsoever. Crown Prince sword? It's nothing more than this. I gripped the hoe with both hands, advancing instead of retreating, and charged towards the sword chi. Today, I'll use this hoe to turn over the lawn of your Crown Prince's estate for you. I poured immortal power into the hoe. The rusty farm tool, at this moment, seemed to come alive. Rust fell rustling, revealing the dark golden body beneath. On the hoe, ancient and mysterious patterns lit up, emitting a vast and heavy aura. It was as if it wasn't meant for tilling the land, but for splitting the heavens and the earth. The hoe and the Crown Prince's sword collided fiercely. There was no earth-shattering explosion, as one might have expected, only a muffled loud noise. The Crown Prince's sword chi, the moment it touched the hoe, dissipated instantly like melting ice and snow. An unparalleled force rebounded back. Ling Xiao was struck as if by lightning, and his entire body flew backwards, slamming heavily into a distant artificial mountain, shattering it to pieces. Hua spewed out a mouthful of golden blood, his face filled with disbelief. What kind of magic treasure is that? I carried the hoe, walking towards him step by step. The tip of the hoe scraped across the marble ground, leaving a deep groove behind, sparks flying everywhere. Magic treasure. I smiled. This is my rice bowl. I crippled the Crown Prince's personal guard and sent Crown Prince Ling Xiao flying with a single hoe strike. This news, like wings, instantly spread throughout the 9 heavens. Countless immortals and gods poked their heads out from their respective caves, their divine senses surging towards my Sihua palace like a tide. When they saw the devastated fire scene, as well as me, holding a hoe brimming with murderous intent, and the Crown Prince in the distance coughing up blood nonstop, everyone was dumbfounded. Isn't that Su Chun from the Sihua Palace? That taciturn gourd who only knows how to grow flowers. Did he eat a bear's heart and a leopard's gall? He dares to attack the Crown Prince. My heavens, His Highness the Crown Prince is actually injured. Injured by a gardener? What is that hoe in his hand? It looks so terrifying. Mockery, doubt, shock, astonishment. All sorts of emotions spread among the onlookers, the immortals and gods. In their eyes, I was just an insignificant, low-ranking immortal, while Ling Xiao was the son of the heavenly emperor, the future lord of the heavenly realm. This conflict, regardless of the cause, meant certain death for me. Ling Xiao struggled to his feet from the rubble, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, his eyes so venomous it looked as if he wanted to devour me. His pride as the Crown Prince had been smashed to pieces by my single hoe strike, especially in front of everyone. Good, very good, he said through gritted teeth. Su Chun, you have successfully angered me. He took out a golden treasure seal from his bosom. As the treasure seal appeared, the wind and clouds changed, and a terrifying pressure that suppressed the heavens descended. It's the heaven-turning seal. Some knowledgeable immortals and gods exclaimed in shock. The protective treasure the celestial emperor bestowed upon the Crown Prince. A Hotian merit spiritual treasure. That gardener is doomed this time. Under the heaven-turning seal, even a grand Luo golden immortal must temporarily avoid its edge. Heaven-turning seal sounds quite intimidating. I just wonder, compared to the ground beneath my feet, which is heavier. Not only was I not afraid, but I felt the blood in my body accelerating. This was a long-lost sense of excitement from meeting a worthy opponent. Ling Xiao frantically poured his immortal power into the heaven-turning seal. The treasure seal grew larger as it faced the wind, instantly transforming into a golden hill suspended above my head, blotting out the sky and the sun. Under the golden light, I felt as if my body was filled with lead, and even raising my arms became incredibly difficult. Space was locked down. Ant kneeled before me. Ling Xiao roared, his face twisted in ferocity. What he wanted wasn't to kill me, but to crush my dignity, to make me kneel before him and beg for mercy. The heaven-turning seal, with its power to destroy the heavens and obliterate the earth, slowly pressed down. The surrounding immortals and gods retreated one after another, fearing being affected by the aftermath. Luo Ying hid in the distance, her face pale with fright, but with a hint of malicious joy as she looked at me. In her view, this ignorant, low-ranking immortal, was about to be crushed into mincemeat. My bones were creaking. My legs began to bend. Want me to kneel? You're not worthy, I roared, pouring all my immortal power, no, all the source power that connected me to this land, to the withered vitality of the flowers and plants in the garden, into the hoe. The ancient patterns on the hoe lit up completely. An aura, even more ancient and profound than the heaven-turning seal, surged towards the sky. It wasn't immortal power, nor divine power, nor demonic power. It was the power of the earth, the power of all things to grow, and also the power of all things to decay. Open. For me, I exhausted all my strength and swung the hoe upwards with a mighty heave. No target, just simply towards the sky, a single hoe strike, as if to open a hole in this very sky. The next second, a bizarre thing happened. The slowly descending heaven-turning seal suddenly trembled violently. The suppressing power it emitted, upon coming into contact with the aura emanating from the hoe, crumbled instantly as if encountering its nemesis. No, impossible. Ling Zhao's expression drastically changed as he felt his connection to the heaven-turning seal being forcibly severed by an unreasonable power. This hoe strike of mine, it wasn't an attack, but plowing the land. This land beneath my feet, it is my domain. Within this domain, I am the master. No matter how strong the heaven-turning seal is, it is merely the embodiment of mountain. And I am the god who governs earth. How could a mountain possibly suppress the earth? Come back, Ling Xiao shouted in terror, attempting to recall the heaven-turning seal. But it was already too late. I sneered and swung the hoe again. This time, it struck precisely at the base of the heaven-turning seal. A crisp sound like porcelain shattering. A clear crack appeared on the golden small mountain. Immediately afterwards, the crack spread rapidly like a spiderweb. Under everyone's horrified gaze, the acquired merit treasure, the heaven-turning seal, shattered, turning into a sky full of golden light, dissipating in the air. Ling Xiao's mind was injured, and he spat out another mouthful of blood, his aura instantly weakening. He collapsed to the ground, looking at me, his eyes no longer filled with anger, but fear. He finally realized that he had provoked someone who was far from an ordinary gardener. The heaven-turning seal was broken. This outcome, like an invisible slap, struck every watching immortal god hard in the face. The entire 9 heavens fell into a deathly silence. If my previous defeat of the heavenly soldiers and injury to the crown prince could be explained by luck or sneak attacks, then now, smashing the acquired merit treasure, the heaven-turning seal, with one hoe blow, has exceeded the scope of everyone's understanding. What kind of hoe is that? The heaven-turning seal. Just shattered like that? Am I dreaming? Who exactly is this Su Chun? When did the Flower Management Palace produce such a monster? Shock, bewilderment, and then deep fear. All the gazes directed at me changed. There was no longer any contempt or ridicule, only awe and incomprehension. I held the hoe, feeling its slight tremor in my palm. Finally, I managed to shake off this layer of rust. The rust on the hoe had completely fallen off, revealing a dark gold body. Engraved on it were not profound runes, but simple pictures. Spring plowing, summer weeding, autumn harvest, winter storage. The simplest farming seasons of the mortal world. But this aura is even more profound than any divine weapon. Because this hoe, its name is Breathing Earth, she rang. Not a replica, but that small piece left over from when the goddess Nuon molded clay to create humans, personally crafted for me. She said I was a god in charge of flowers and plants, and should have my own foundation. This hoe is not about combat, but only about life and growth. It can make the most barren land grow the most luxuriant plants. Naturally, it can also make the most powerful enemies return to the most primitive dust. This is the authority of the earth. Ling Xiao collapsed on the ground, his eyes filled with horror and greed as he looked at the hoe in my hand. Although he didn't know what it was, he could feel that it was definitely a primordial object surpassing an acquired merit spiritual treasure. How could a lowly gardener possess such a treasure? You, who exactly are you? He asked, his voice trembling. I didn't answer him. I just looked at him and said calmly, now, we can talk about the issue of compensation. Compensation? Ling Xiao was stunned. Yes, compensation. I pointed the hoe at the scorched earth ruins behind me. My flower garden, 3,700 kinds of rare and exotic flowers, each at least 1,000 years old. And the ancient medicine garden that goddess Nuwa entrusted me to take care of, which contains 108 ancient spiritual roots. Not a single one can be missing. Crown Prince, how do you plan to compensate? My words, amplified through the water mirror, clearly resonated throughout the 9 heavens. What? Lady Nuwa's medicinal garden? Has he gone mad? What nonsense is he talking about? It's over, this has escalated. The Crown Prince didn't burn an ordinary flower bed. It was Lady Nuwa's property. No wonder he dared to fight the Crown Prince. He was relying on something. Ling Xiao's face instantly turned deathly pale. He hadn't paid any attention to what the small garden shrouded by the barrier was before. Now, upon hearing the 4 words, Lady Nuwa, his mind buzzed, and his head went blank. He could disregard any immortal or deity in the world, but he wouldn't dare disregard that saint. She was the one who created the human race and mended the heavens, destroying her things. He couldn't bear this charge. Even his father, the heavenly emperor, couldn't bear it. You're talking nonsense. Ling Xiao roared, his voice harsh but weak. You're slandering me. It's just an excuse to escape punishment. He's panicking. Doesn't want to admit it, huh? Fine, then let everyone see. I turned around and walked to the medicinal garden that had been reduced to scorched earth. Reaching out, I gently sifted through the ashes. Soon, I picked up a fragment of a leaf from a pile of black powder. It was only the size of a fingernail, completely charred, but still barely holding its shape. I held the leaf in my palm, raising it high. Fellow colleagues, does anyone recognize this? My voice echoed in all directions. Countless divine senses focused on the charred leaf in my palm. At first, everyone was confused, but soon, some old immortal lords and old officials who had lived for countless years suddenly gasped. This, the pattern of the veins, it's 9-bend soul returning grass. That's right, it's the 9-bend soul returning grass. The legendary sacred medicine that can bring the dead back to life and regenerate flesh. It's been extinct in the 6 realms for a long time. I saw its diagram in the ruins of the ancient god wars. Exactly the same. Heavens! What on earth has His Highness the Crown Prince burned? A highly respected old immortal official, his voice trembling, knelt before the water mirror. Scene. This is a great misfortune for the 6 realms. Following his kneeling, more and more immortals and gods recognized the origin of that leaf. Panic, like a plague, spread throughout the entire heavenly court. Ling Xiao, watching the terrified expressions of those immortals and gods, listening to their despairing discussions, knew he was finished. He hadn't destroyed a gardener's garden. He had destroyed the last glimmer of hope for the beings of the 6 realms. This responsibility was too great, so great that it was enough to crush him, this heavenly realm crown prince, into powder. The evidence was irrefutable. Ling Xiao's face was whiter than the ashes beneath his feet. He wanted to argue, but found that he couldn't utter a single word from his throat. That small, charred leaf was like an invisible mountain, pressing down on him, making it hard to breathe. He was finished. He knew very well that once this matter was confirmed, forgetting the position of crown prince, whether he could even save his life was a question. Now I know to be afraid. Too late. When you were burning my garden, why didn't you show any mercy? I looked at him coldly, without a trace of pity in my heart. Just then, a flicker of madness and ruthlessness flashed in Ling Zhao's eyes. He suddenly erupted, not towards me, but towards the charred ruins of the medicinal garden. What does he want to do? Destroy the evidence. I understood instantly. As long as all the evidence was completely erased, leaving no way to verify the death, he might have a sliver of hope. Don't even think about it. I roared, my figure flashing as I blocked him. Get out of my way. Ling Xiao was like a madman. The crown prince, sword summoned once more. This time, he burned his own vital essence and blood, making the sword light 10 times stronger than before. He no longer cared about face. He only wanted to live. Obstinate and unyielding, I raised the breathing earth hoe, and the earth's heavy power surged once again. But this time, Ling Xiao's target wasn't me at all. He feinted with a sword strike, twisting his body at an impossible angle, bypassing me, and slammed a palm heavily onto the ground. Annihilation, divine lightning. Lightning flashed in his palm, threatening to blast this entire ruin, along with the earth veins, into nothingness. Ruthless enough, even ruthless to himself. Too bad, playing with earth in front of me, you're still too green. I snorted coldly and plunged the hoe into ground. Thick earth rise. The ground of the entire Siflower Palace trembled violently. Walls of earth-yellow light rose from the ground, layered upon layered like petals, firmly protecting the medicinal garden ruins in the center. Ling Xiao's annihilation divine lightning crashed into the light walls, only causing ripples before dissipating into nothingness. How can this be? Ling Xiao was utterly despairing. He realized that all the divine powers he was so proud of seemed so laughable in front of this unremarkable gardener. The other party was like an insurmountable mountain. No, a land even more terrifying than a mountain. All his attacks were like a clay ox entering the sea. Just then, a dignified command echoed from the sky. Stop! A dozen golden lights flashed, and a team of majestic divine generals clad in golden armor and wielding celestial halberds descended from the sky, surrounding me and Ling Xiao. Leading them was the heavenly court's judicial deity, pagoda-bearing heavenly king Li Jing. His expression was grave. He glanced at the ruined Sihua Palace, then at the Ling Xiao slumped on the ground, and me holding a hoe, his brow furrowing deeply. Your Highness, Crown Prince, Immortal Lord Su Chun, what exactly has happened? His gaze finally settled on me. Immortal Lord. He used the honorific Immortal Lord. This indicated that from the moment I shattered the heaven-turning seal, my status was no longer that of a minor immortal to be trifled with. Ling Xiao, as if grasping at the last straw, scrambled and crawled to Li Jing. Heavenly King, save me. This fiend is insane. Not only did he disrespect his superiors and assault me, but he even intends to rebel. He made a false accusation first, pushing all the blame onto me. He slandered me for burning down the Lady Nuwas herb garden, using it as an excuse to try to overthrow the heavenly court. Li Jing's brow furrowed even deeper. He looked at me. Immortal Lord Su Chun, is what the Crown Prince said true? I ignored Ling Zhao's roaring and simply put away the hoe, cupping my hands in a salute to Li Jing. Heavenly King, please discern the truth. That the Crown Prince set fire to my Sihua Palace is a fact. That I acted in self-defense is also a fact. As for whether it is Lady Nuwas Garden, the Heavenly King can see for himself. I pointed to the ruins protected by the earthen wall. Li Jing's expression was solemn. He dared not neglect it, and personally walked to the ruins. When his divine sense swept over the charred ashes, his face instantly changed drastically. He suddenly turned his head, staring fixedly at Ling Xiao, his eyes filled with shock and anger. You have committed a heinous crime. Li Jing's voice was trembling. As the judicial god, in charge of the heavenly laws. He knew best what this meant. Ling Xiao's heart sank to the very bottom. Li Jing's reaction had already pronounced his death sentence. No, it wasn't me. It was him. He framed me. He was still making a last-ditch struggle. Li Jing shook his head, his face full of disappointment. He waved his hand. Someone, take Prince Ling Xiao into the heavenly prison to await his majesty's judgment. Invite mortel Lord Su Chen to the judicial temple to assist in the investigation. As soon as the order was given, celestial soldiers and generals immediately stepped forward. 2 heavenly generals hoisted up Ling Xiao, who had already collapsed into a pile of mud, and dragged him away like a dead dog. Ling Xiao was still shouting madly, "Father Emperor, save me! Father Emperor, I am innocent!" But no one paid him any attention. Luo Ying had long been frightened and hid in the corner, not even daring to raise her head. I watched Ling Xiao being taken away, without the slightest ripple in my heart. This is just the beginning. Sent to the heavenly prison? That's too easy on you. The debt for destroying my garden must be repaid with your life. I nodded to Li Jing and followed the other 2 heavenly generals towards the judicial temple. I knew that this storm had only just begun. The heavenly emperor should be making his appearance soon too. The judicial temple was solemn and dignified. This was the place in heaven where crimes were judged and heavenly laws were enforced. Ordinary immortals who came here were invariably trembling and terrified. But I, on the other hand, felt like I was strolling through my own backyard. I was invited to a quiet chamber where celestial maidens served the finest immortal tea and fruits. Li Jing was extremely polite to me, his words filled with honorifics like Immortal Lord, please, and excuse the trouble. Looks like this god of justice is the sensible person. He knows who the real victim is in this whole affair. I leisurely sipped my tea, waiting. I knew they were waiting for the heavenly emperor's decree. Ling Xiao is the crown prince, while I'm just a gardener, at least on the surface. This matter is too significant. Li Jing can't make a decision. Sure enough, it wasn't long before a decree-bearing immortal official hurried over. His Majesty decrees, a court hearing shall be held in the Hall of High Heaven. Here it comes. The main event is here. I followed Li Jing all the way to the Hall of High Heaven. Above the Grand Hall, immortal mist swirled, and auspicious rays shone in abundance. The heavenly emperor sat high upon the 9-dragon throne, his face stern, revealing no emotion. The civil and military officials stood in rows on either side, utterly silent. The atmosphere was suppressed to the extreme. Crown Prince Ling Xiao was held below the hall, his hair disheveled, looking miserable with none of his former grandeur. Luo Ying also knelt to the side, her face stained with tears, trembling in fear. I walked into the hall, cupped my fist towards the heavenly emperor, neither humble nor arrogant. Little immortal Su Chen pays respects to your majesty. The heavenly emperor's gaze fell upon me, like 2 bolts of lightning, as if to see right through me. That pressure was more than 10,000 times stronger than Ling Xiao's crown prince's divine might. An ordinary golden immortal would probably have already knelt and begged for mercy under this gaze. But I just stood there quietly. My roots are planted in this land. As long as my feet are on solid ground, even the heavens can't crush me. Try to suppress me with your aura? Your Majesty, that trick doesn't work on me. I'm just a farmer, and the thing I fear the least is pressure. A trace of surprise flashed in the heavenly emperor's eyes, and he immediately withdrew his oppressive aura. Su Chen, he said slowly, his voice as loud as a bell. You accuse Crown Prince Ling Xiao of arson, burning down the Nuwa sacred garden. Is this true? He didn't ask Ling Xiao, but asked me first. The implications here run deep. Your Majesty, it is indeed true, I replied loudly. Audacious. As soon as I finished speaking, a celestial official dressed in purple robes jumped out. He was the Crown Prince's teacher, Grand Tutor Wenzhong. Su Chen, you, a mere lower-ranking immortal, dare to slander the Crown Prince. His Highness the Crown Prince is the heir apparent, of noble character. How could he commit such a heinous act? I believe you are clearly guilty of self-theft. Now that your crime has been exposed, you want to drag His Highness the Crown Prince down with you. You deserve to die." His words were righteous and stern, as if he had personally witnessed me setting the fire. Here it comes, the old dog who twists black and white. Noble character? Why didn't you say that when your crown prince was keeping a demoness outside? Immediately afterwards, several other celestial officials, clearly from the crown prince's faction, stood up and accused me one after another. "We beseech your majesty to punish him. Severely punish this fiend. A gardener, daring to slander the heir apparent. This kind of trend must not be allowed to grow." Ling Xiao, hearing people speak on his behalf, also perked up and cried out, "Father Emperor, your son is innocent. It's Su Chun. He's jealous of the deep affection between your son and Luo Ying. So he harbored malicious intentions and burned down the garden himself to frame your son." He pointed at Luo Ying. "Father Emperor, look, Luo Ying is a weak woman, and he's scared her to this state." Luo Ying also cooperated and cried even harder. For a time, the entire hall was filled with voices accusing me. I had become that sinister, malicious, and shameless villain who slandered the loyal and good. But Ling Xiao and Luo Ying, on the contrary, became the victims. The Heavenly Emperor sat on the throne, watching everything with a blank expression, not saying a word. He was observing, weighing the situation. Well, this is quite a show. Are they trying to crush me with public opinion? Too bad. I'm holding a royal flush. I waited until they had said almost everything before slowly speaking. "Your Majesty." My voice wasn't loud, but it made the entire hall instantly silent. This humble little immortal has a light voice and doesn't dare to argue with His Highness the Crown Prince and all the esteemed officials. This humble one here has something I would like to ask His Majesty and all my colleagues to take a look at. As I spoke, I took out that charred leaf from my robes. I didn't present it forward, but held it in the palm of my hand, injecting a trace of weak primal power. The next second, a miracle happened. That completely charred leaf actually began to glow with a faint green light from the center. Immediately afterwards, an indescribable Tao rhyme filled with life and creation emanated from the leaf. This Tao rhyme was pure, ancient, and sacred. As soon as it appeared, the immortal energy in the entire Ling Xiao palace boiled. Countless phantoms of immortal plants appeared, grew, bloomed, and bore fruit in the hall. All the immortals and gods who smelled this aura felt a loosening of their bottlenecks that had been stuck for many years. This is Qi of creation. It's the Qi of creation of the goddess Nuwa. Heavens, it really is a relic of a sage. Nine Bin's soul, returning grass. It really is Nine Bin's soul, returning grass. Those immortal officials who had been clamoring to severely punish me just now were all silent. Their faces were ashen, beads of cold sweat rolling down their foreheads. Grand Tutor Wen Zhong's legs went weak, and he collapsed directly to the ground. Evidence. This was ironclad evidence. Evidence more powerful than any words. They could question my character, but they dared not question the aura of the sage Nuwa. Ling Xiao looked at the green light as if he were seeing a death warrant, his whole body shaking like a sieve. No. It's fake, it's all fake. He muttered to himself, completely broken down. The Heavenly Emperor, high on his throne, leaned forward abruptly, staring intently at the leaf in my hand. For the first time, undisguised shock and a hint of greed appeared in his eyes. But he hid it well, quickly regaining his majesty. His gaze slowly moved from a leaf and landed on his good-for-nothing son. That gaze was ice-cold, devoid of any emotion. When the vitality of the Nine Bin soul, returning grass, permeated the hall of the high heavens, the nature of the trial changed completely. This was no longer a private feud between the Crown Prince and a minor celestial. It was a heinous crime that shook the foundations of the heavenly court and offended an ancient sage. All the sophistry and framing had become a joke in the face of this small leaf. The Heavenly Emperor's gaze was like two cold knives, scraping against Ling Xiao's body. Ling Xiao could no longer hold on. His mental defenses had completely collapsed. "Father, spare me. Your son was wrong. Your son was only temporarily confused." He knelt on the ground, kowtowing frantically, his forehead quickly bloody. "It's all that demoness. She seduced me. She caused me to make a big mistake." Even at this point, he did not forget to push the responsibility onto Luo Ying. Luo Ying looked at Ling Xiao in disbelief. She never expected that this man who claimed to love her and would give anything for her would not hesitate to push her out as a shield when faced with a life-or-death situation. Her heart instantly turned cold. Dog-eat-dog, a mouthful of hair. If I had known this would happen, why did I do in the first place? Now you know to beg for mercy? When you burned my garden, you weren't wearing that face. I watched the farce unfold with cold eyes, not saying a word. The Heavenly Emperor also didn't immediately erupt. He looked at me deeply, then slowly opened his mouth, his voice devoid of emotion. "Li Jing." Present. Pagoda-bearing Heavenly King Li Jing stepped forward. "You take men and personally inspect the Sihua Palace. Every blade of grass, every brick and tile, you must thoroughly investigate. See what else, besides the 9-bend soul-returning grass, was lost." "Understood." Li Jing accepted the order, leading a troop of soldiers, and hurriedly departed. The Heavenly Emperor's action was laden with meaning. He wasn't that he didn't trust me, but that he wanted everyone to see just how devastating the loss was. He wanted to pave the way for the thunderous wrath to come. Old fox, truly scheming. He intends to use my hands to dispose of the crown prince, and still maintain a reputation for being fair and just. I understood everything perfectly. However, this was exactly what I wanted. I want Ling Xiao to die in full view of everyone, to die under the judgment of the heavenly laws. Inside the great hall, a long wait began. Ling Xiao and Luo Ying knelt on the ground, trembling like sieves. Those immortal officials who had spoken on behalf of the crown prince earlier lowered their heads one by one, wishing they could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. The entire heavenly court was waiting for Li Jing's investigation results. These results will decide the fate of the crown prince, and will also determine the future direction of the heavenly court. Approximately an hour later, Li Jing returned. His face was ashen, his lips trembling, as if he had witnessed something utterly terrifying. He walked to the center of the hall and collapsed to his knees with a thud, his voice hoarse. "Your Majesty, I'm guilty." The Heavenly Emperor raised an eyebrow. "Guilty of what?" Li Jing trembled, took out a jade scroll from his bosom, and raised it high with both hands. "I inspected the ruins of the Sihua Palace. Besides the Nuwa Empress's primordial medicinal garden being completely incinerated." He took a deep breath, as if using all his strength. "Sihua Immortal Lord Su Chun, the rare and exotic flowers and plants he cultivated over the past 3,000 years, totaling 3,721 species, have all been destroyed. Among them, there is the 9 Revolutions Golden Lotus, which can stabilize the golden immortal Tao fruit. There is the Ice Heart Glazed Grass, which can cleanse the karmic fire of the divine soul. And there is the Jinmu sapling, which can replenish the original spiritual energy of the heavens and earth and delay the arrival of the Dharma ending age. What? As soon as these words were spoken, the entire Ling Xiao Palace, all the immortals and gods, including the Heavenly Emperor on high, all stood up abruptly. Jinmu, that was the legendary sacred tree that connected the heavens, earth, humans, and gods. In ancient times, Jinmu was severed, and the passage between heaven and earth was cut off, and the spiritual energy gradually thinned. Countless immortals and gods believed that Jinmu was completely extinct. Who would have thought that in an inconspicuous corner of the Sihua Palace, Su Chun, this unknown gardener, was quietly cultivating Jinmu saplings? That was the future hope of the 6 realms. Now, that hope has been burned in a fire. The Heavenly Emperor's body swayed, almost falling from the 9-dragon throne. He stared intently at the jade scroll, and then intently at Li Jing kneeling on the ground, his eyes no longer filled with coldness, but pure kili no intent. If burning Nuwa's medicine garden could be atoned for by begging forgiveness before the saints, then burning the Jianmu sapling meant severing the future of the entire heavenly court and even the entire 6 realms. No one could bear this sin. You wicked son! A roar that shook the 9 heavens erupted from the heavenly emperor's mouth. Terrifying imperial might swept through the entire hall like a tsunami. The weaker immortal officials were directly overwhelmed by this pressure, coughing up blood and fainting. Ling Xiao was locked onto by this murderous aura, unable to even scream, golden blood seeping from his 7 orifices. He finally understood. What he had burned was not a flower garden. It was his life. It was the life of the entire heavenly court. The heavenly emperor's anger made the entire 9 heavens tremble. Above the hall of divine might, dark clouds gathered. Lightning snakes danced wildly, as if the end of the world had arrived. All the immortals and gods prostrated on the ground, not daring to look up. They had never seen the heavenly emperor so enraged. It was an anger filled with genuine killing intent. Jinmu, sapling. The heavenly emperor muttered to himself in a daze. He stepped down from his throne, walking towards Li Jing step by step. He did not use any immortal arts, just walked, each step feeling like it was stepping on everyone's heart. He took the jade book from Li Jing's hand, looked at the records of losses on it, his hand trembling slightly. As the master of the 3 realms, he had seen many great storms. But today he was truly afraid. He knew the meaning of Jianmu better than anyone. That was the spark of the immortal Tao civilization that continued. Now the spark is extinguished. His gaze slowly turned towards me. That look was extremely complex, filled with shock, regret, disbelief, and a hint of exploration. Su Chen. His voice carried a faint, almost imperceptible hoarseness. The Jianmu sapling is really gone. I met his gaze and nodded. The solar true fire is incomparably domineering, burning away all life. Although Jianmu is a sacred tree, it is still young and could not withstand it. My tone was very calm, but the calmer it was, the more it was like a knife stabbing into the heavenly emperor's heart. Feeling the pain now? What were you doing earlier? You can't discipline your son, and now you're asking me? It's gone, all burned to ashes. Are you satisfied? The heavenly emperor closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, his eyes were filled with only endless coldness and determination. He looked at Ling Xiao, the son he was once most proud of. Wicked spawn. He waved his hand. A golden light flashed. One of Ling Xiao's arms was severed at the shoulder, and golden divine blood gushed out. Ling Xiao let out a pig-slaughtering scream. He didn't expect that his father would really treat him so ruthlessly. Father, spare me, father. Severing one of your arms is for the future destruction of my heavenly court. The heavenly emperor's voice held not a trace of emotion. He waved his hand again. Ling Xiao's other arm was also severed. Severing your second arm is for the holy medicine of the goddess Nuwa that will be destroyed. All the immortals and gods present were silent as cicadas in winter. The heavenly emperor was going, put righteousness before family. Ling Xiao writhed on the ground in pain, looking at Luo Ying beside him as if she were a lifeline. Luo Ying, save me. Tell father it's all your fault. Hurry. He actually still wanted Luo Ying to take the blame for him. Luo Ying looked at this man she had once loved to death, now like a mad dog, and the last trace of affection in her eyes was completely extinguished. She just looked at him coldly, without saying a word. The heavenly emperor's gaze fell on Luo Ying, remnant of the demon race, seducing the crown prince, shaking the foundation of the nation. Your sin is unforgivable. He flicked his finger. A divine light shot towards Luo Ying. Luo Ying closed her eyes, awaiting the arrival of death. She didn't regret it. This was the path she had chosen herself. However, just as the divine light was about to strike her, I moved. I didn't want to save her. I just didn't want my flower garden to be stained with blood again. I slammed my Shi-Rang hoe into the ground. An earthen yellow light curtain blocked Luo Ying, easily dissolving the Heavenly Emperor's divine light. Everyone was stunned. The Heavenly Emperor was also stunned. He hadn't expected that I would intervene. Su Chun Xinjuan, what is the meaning of this? He narrowed his eyes, his tone tinged with a hint of danger. I looked at him and said calmly, Your Majesty, killing is permissible, but not on my doorstep. My garden was just burned down. I don't want to see blood again. Furthermore, my tone shifted and my gaze swept over everyone in the hall. Grievances have their source. Debts have their debtor. The fire was started by the Crown Prince. The crime should be borne by him alone. To take anger out on a weak woman is not something a Heavenly Emperor should do, is it? My words made the Heavenly Emperor's face alternate between green and white. Was I teaching him what to do? But unfortunately, I was in the right. Moreover, the power I had just displayed made him wary of me. Want to kill someone to vent your anger? Shift the blame. No way. Today's protagonist is only Ling Xiao. His debts are not yet paid. The atmosphere in the hall became strange again. A silent, unknown gardener had actually contradicted the Heavenly Emperor in front of the entire court of immortals and gods. And the Heavenly Emperor couldn't even lose his temper. This scene completely subverted everyone's values. They looked at me, this man carrying a hoe, their eyes now filled with deep awe and fear. This gardener was not only unfathomably strong, but also daring to an outrageous extent. My words were like a thorn, stuck in the Heavenly Emperor's heart. As the master of the three realms, when had he ever been contradicted so directly to his face? But he couldn't afford to lash out. Firstly, I was in the right. Secondly, my strength made him wary. Thirdly, he needed my help now. The Jinmu was gone. Nuwa's medicine garden was destroyed. This mess could only be cleaned up with the agreement of me, the victim. The Heavenly Emperor's expression changed constantly, and finally, he took a deep look at me and actually took a step back. Immortal Lord Su Chun is right. He withdrew his killing intent and said slowly, I was out of line. He actually admitted his mistake. The eyeballs of the entire court of immortals and gods were about to fall out. The Heavenly Emperor apologized to his subject. This was unheard of in the entire history of the Heavenly Court. Lucky you know what's good for you. If you dare to act tough in front of me, I would have leveled this hall of supreme heaven today. I snorted inwardly, but remained calm on the surface. The Heavenly Emperor returned to the throne and sat down. This time, there was no longer any of the previous violence and killing intent on his body, only the majesty and coldness of a king. He knew that he had to give an explanation today that would satisfy Su Chun and convince the Six Realms. Otherwise, the prestige of the Heavenly Court would be completely lost. Issue my decree. The Heavenly Emperor's voice echoed throughout the hall of supreme heaven. Crown Prince Ling Xiao, disregarding heavenly grace, arrogant and dissolute, for his own selfish desires, set fire to and destroyed the holy garden, severing the foundation of the immortal path. His sins are heinous and intolerable to heaven and earth. From this moment on, he is stripped of his position as crown prince and demoted to a commoner. Strip his immortal bones, remove his divine status, cast him into the nine nether hell, never to be reincarnated. This judgment, like a bolt of thunder from the heavens, struck the souls of everyone present. Depose crown prince, strip immortal bones, remove divine status, cast into the nine nether hell. This was 10,000 times more cruel than killing him directly. This was to make him unable to live, unable to die, forever sinking in endless pain. This was the most severe punishment in the heavenly laws, one that had not been invoked for tens of thousands of years. No. Ling Xiao let out a desperate roar. Father, don't. I am your son. You can't do this to me. He struggled frantically, but was held down firmly by two golden-armored divine generals. The Heavenly Emperor closed his eyes, his face without a trace of emotion. I have no such son. Proceed. These two cold words pronounced Ling Xiao's final fate. The two golden-armored divine generals obeyed the command, and in their hands appeared specially made instruments of torture. They were two daggers flashing with black runes, specially used to strip away the foundations of immortals. A piercing scream echoed through the hall. Before everyone's eyes, Ling Xiao's spine was extracted inch by inch, and the divine status on the top of his head was forcibly dug out. He went from a high and mighty favored son of heaven to a useless person less worthy than even a mortal in an instant. Golden divine blood flowed all over the ground, and his aura decayed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, like a pile of mud, he was dragged out of the hall of high heaven. Luo Ying, watching this scene, was so frightened that she fainted directly. The heavenly emperor didn't even look at her. He waved his hand. Expel her from the heavenly realm, never to step foot inside the southern gate again. He was too lazy to waste any more energy on this woman. After dealing with all of this, the heavenly emperor's gaze fell on me once again. This time, his eyes were filled with complex emotions. There was apology, there was enticement, and there was also a hint of barely perceptible fear. Immortal Lord Suchen. He stepped down from his throne and personally came before me. Today's events are due to my poor discipline of my son, causing immortal Lord to suffer injustice, and the heavenly court to suffer this great calamity. I, on behalf of the heavenly court, offer my apology to you. As he spoke, he actually slightly bowed towards me, giving a salute. The heavenly emperor, saluting his subject. This scene completely overturned the worldviews of all the surviving celestial officials. They looked at me, this man carrying a hoe, who had remained calm throughout the entire ordeal. In their hearts, only one thought remained. The heavenly court is about to change. The heavenly emperor's apology and his bow pushed this trial to its climax. In the entire hall of majestic clouds, one could hear a pin drop. All the immortals and gods held their breath, looking at me, waiting for my reaction. Accept or not accept. This not only concerned my personal attitude, but also the future dignity of the heavenly court. I looked at this ruler of the three realms before me. He had lowered himself and made a full show of humility. He abolished the crown prince, delivered a heavy sentence, and personally apologized. From the perspective of imperial tactics, he had done everything to the extreme. He had not only punished the culprit, but also appeased the victim, and also showed his fair and just side to the entire heavenly court. One old actor. If my garden hadn't really been destroyed, I almost would have believed your nonsense. I mentally scoffed, but on the surface, I simply placed the hoe to the side. With a clang, the living soil hoe landed on the jade stone floor, emitting a dull thud. The sound made the heavenly emperor's eyelids twitch. I cupped my hands towards him, considering it a return greeting. Your Majesty exaggerates. The culprit has already been brought to justice, so this matter is considered closed. I accepted his apology, because I knew that continuing to harp on it would be lacking in discretion. Pushing the heavenly emperor into a corner would bring me no good. My goal was revenge, to seek justice, not to overthrow the heavenly court. Seeing that I had accepted the stepping stone he offered, the heavenly emperor visibly breathed a sigh of relief. His face immediately revealed a warm smile, as if the murderous emperor from just now wasn't him at all. Immortal Lord Su Chan is deeply understanding and righteous. This pleases me greatly. He sees my hand, displaying unparalleled cordiality. Immortal Lord has suffered a great injustice this time, and I must properly compensate you. I wish to bestow upon Immortal Lord the title of East Flower Emperor, ranking among the 5 emperors and 5 elders, in charge of all plant and animal life under heaven, and grant the emperor a residence, along with 1,000 celestial maidens. What do you think? A collective gasp echoed throughout the hall. East Flower Emperor. That was a position second only to the heavenly emperor. A meteoric rise to prominence. What a generous compensation. All the celestial officials looked at me with envy, jealousy, and hatred. In their eyes, I had traded a broken garden for such a prestigious position. It was practically a massive profit. However, I shook my head. Thank you for your majesty's favor. However, this little fairy is used to being lazy and wouldn't be able to be any kind of emperor, and I certainly have no need for palace maids. I refused. Amidst everyone's incredulous gazes, I rejected this enormous favor. The heavenly emperor was also stunned. He had considered countless possibilities, but he never imagined I would refuse. Then, what compensation does a mortal lord desire? He asked tentatively. He thought I felt it wasn't enough and wanted a bargain. I smiled and picked up my hoe again. Your Majesty, my requests are very simple. First, return my original flower palace to me, exactly as it was. Not a single brick or tile can be missing. Second, I want access to the heavenly court's treasury for 3 days. I'll choose any seeds of rare flowers, exotic herbs, divine trees, and immortal roots inside. Third, I paused, looked at the heavenly emperor, and said, word by word, I want Ling Zhao's divinity. Although my first 2 requests were a bit outrageous, the heavenly emperor could accept them. But as soon as the 3rd request came out, the heavenly emperor's face instantly changed. What do you want his divinity for? He asked warily. Divinity is the source of a god's power. Although Ling Zhao had been stripped of his position, his divinity was still at the crown prince level, containing vast dragon energy and divine power. This thing has far too many uses. I looked at him, grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Nothing in particular. It's just that I feel the soil in my garden is a little barren after being scorched by the solar true fire. Using a crown prince's godhood as fertilizer should be. Just right. Using a crown prince's godhood as fertilizer. This sentence carried more impact than anything I had said before. The entire hall of high heaven fell into a deathly silence. All the immortals and gods looked at me as if I were a madman. What utter humiliation! To use the source godhood of a future heavenly emperor as flower fertilizer. This would leave him even less peace after death than killing Ling Zhao himself. The heavenly emperor's face instantly darkened to the point where it seemed like water would drip from it. His fists were clenched so tightly in his sleeves that they cracked. This was slapping him in the face. A blatant slap in the face. He had already abolished the crown prince and sentenced him to the ultimate punishment, making the greatest concession. Yet, I still wouldn't let it go, and even used this method to humiliate the dignity of his imperial family. What? Not happy? Your son's life is a life, but my 3,000 years of effort isn't. An eye for an eye, very fair. I met his gaze without any fear, my eyes showing no sign of yielding. The atmosphere in the hall was tense to the extreme. Just when everyone thought the heavenly emperor was about to erupt in anger again, he suddenly laughed. The laughter was very cold. Fine. Then he said to the celestial official next to him, Go, retrieve Ling Xiao's godhood and give it to immortal Lord Su Chun. He actually agreed. Consider you ruthless, able to yield and stretch. No wonder you can be the celestial emperor. My estimation of this old fox in my heart rose another level. He knew that if he didn't agree to me, this matter wouldn't be over today. A gardener who can cultivate even Jinmu, a mysterious powerhouse wielding an innate treasure. Their value is far more important than the dignity of an already ruined son. He's using the face of a dead man to exchange for the future of a living one. Soon, a celestial official returned with a brocade box. Inside the brocade box, a glittering golden pearl, entwined with dragon energy, was pulsating slightly. That was Ling Xiao's divine spark. I took it and hefted it. The weight is quite substantial, should be able to fertilize my land for several hundred years. I casually put it into my arms, as if putting away an ordinary stone. Thank you, Your Majesty. I cupped my hands in a salute. As long as the immortal lord is satisfied. No emotion could be discerned in the celestial emperor's smile. If there's nothing else, this humble immortal will take his leave. My garden is still waiting for me to go back and tidy it up. As I said that, I picked up my hoe and turned to leave. Immortal Lord, Please wait. The Celestial Emperor suddenly stopped me. He looked at me, his gaze becoming incredibly profound. I have one more question. The Jianmu sapling. Truly, is there no way to revive it? This is his ultimate purpose today. Deposing the crown prince was for others to see. Winning me over was for the present. What he really cares about is Jianmu. I stopped and turned back to look at him, looking at that last trace of hope in his eyes. I was silent for a moment. Then I laughed. Your Majesty, have you ever seen a farmer put all his seeds in one basket? My words were like a clap of thunder, exploding in the heavenly emperor's mind. He was stunned. Immediately, immense ecstasy, like a tidal wave, surged onto his face. You mean? His voice trembled. The Jianmu, there's a backup? I did not answer directly. I just smiled mysteriously. Heavenly secrets must not be divulged. This humble immortal takes his leave. Having said that, I did not linger, and, carrying my hoe, strode out of the Hall of Supreme Harmony, swaggering under the awed gazes of the assembled celestial gods. After I left, the hall was first deathly silent. Then, a tsunami of discussion erupted. Is he telling the truth? There's still hope for the Jianmu. My heavens! Just what is the background of this Su Chun? Too terrifying. Not only is his strength unfathomable, but his mind is so meticulous. From now on, we must avoid the Siflower Palace. No, we must pay our respects. That's our heavenly court's precious treasure. The heavenly emperor stood before the throne, silent for a long time. He looked in the direction I had left, his expression extremely complex. He knew that, from this day forward, the structure of the heavenly court would completely change. An inconspicuous gardener, through his own efforts, brought down the crown prince, shocked the heavenly emperor, and became a being that the entire heavenly court dared not provoke. And the cause of all this was simply because someone burned his garden. I returned to the Sihua Palace. It had been completely renovated. While I was at the Lingxiao Treasure Hall, the immortals of the Heavenly Crafts Department, following the Heavenly Emperor's highest directive, had perfectly restored my palace and flower garden, replicating it 101. Even the materials used were better than before. I walked to the former medicinal garden, now an empty space. From my bosom, I took out a small cloth bag. Opening the bag, it was filled with seeds of various colors. Luckily, I have a habit of making backups. Otherwise, I would have really lost everything this time. I carefully replanted those seeds. Then I took out the golden, glittering crown Prince Godhead. Without the slightest hesitation, I crushed it like a walnut, reducing it to powder. Pucci, the Godhead, transformed into the purest original energy, merging into the soil beneath my feet. The entire land shone with a faint golden light. The seeds that had just been planted began to sprout and grow at a visible speed. I believe that it won't be long before this place will be a vibrant scene again, and it will be even better than before. I clapped my hands, satisfied with my masterpiece. Then, I rummaged through the corner of the ruins and found my recliner and teapot. I brewed another pot of tea and leisurely lay down. The sun was just right, and the breeze was gentle. The heavenly realm had returned to its former tranquility. However, from today onwards, no one would dare to come and make trouble at my Sihua Palace again. Occasionally, passing immortals and gods would respectfully bow towards my palace from afar. I cracked sunflower seeds, drank tea, and watched the clouds drift across the sky. Farming is still the most comfortable. Fighting and killing is too tiring. However, if anyone dares to touch my flowers again, next time, it won't be as simple as hoeing one person to death. My garden is still missing quite a bit of fertilizer.